Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast,
a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano, Alvarez here with Brent, LaBrada, and a couple of returning guests, both of which are very dear friends of mine, and we're excited to introduce you guys. Just before we do, I want to give shout-outs, of course, to our loyal listeners. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. We're really happy with all the positive feedback from Season 4. Thank you guys so much. We're going to keep bringing it for you, and with that, over to you, Brent.
What's up, everybody? Yes, as he mentioned, we have two very esteemed guests joining us back. We have Julius and Stephanie Vichinsky joining us from Method Canine. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, everything's good. Everybody's happy and healthy.
Yeah, we are. Thank God, and especially in LA. You guys are good. How's the family? How's the staff? Everyone good?
Yeah, we're all good. We got some snow this morning, but other than that, we're plugging through.
Yeah, I opened up the door and it was a little drift in front of the door, and wind was whipping.
It's cold.
20s over here right now, so a little brisk.
I know. I'm in California. It's like a beautiful 70 degrees outside right now. And then Mariano's in the desert, so we don't know what you're talking about at all. No, but that's cool. So as we were talking before we hit record, this season is really dedicated in professional development, right? And it's what our goal is to talk to dog trainers. We're doing a series with Tyler Muto right now, and he actually put the point perfectly. He goes, a lot of dog trainers pay a lot of money to figure out the right training technique, where to put the food, when to mark this. They pay so much money to learn that, but they don't pay that much money learning the human side of it. They don't pay that much to learn about the marketing or how to sell or how to talk to people or how to, problem resolve things. And this is something that I think anyone who is thriving in the dog training business, this is something that is a skill that we have, right? That we have as people, and you must have it or else you cannot grow, you cannot scale, you cannot build a team behind you to help you fulfill your mission. And so, I think you guys are, in my opinion, I think you guys are the only dog trainers of this generation of dog trainers that are doing the stuff that you're doing. And we're just very, very grateful that you guys are here, and hopefully you can add some value to the listeners and teach us a couple things. We learn stuff all the time. I love that. So yeah, let's get started.
We love you guys, and we were definitely excited to be here. So thank you.
You're so sweet. Thank you guys. I wish I had the ability to hang out with you guys more, and I know Mariano was able to visit you guys, and one of these, maybe this year, I'll make a trip out there to go see you guys. I need a vacation.
Coming this summer.
That's right.
Yeah, please. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was beautiful out there too. So, what I'd really like to discuss with you guys is the introduction of the Method Canine Institute. I know that we've talked separately about what Method Canine had been, and everybody knows what Method Canine had been doing, the board and train programs that are super popular, and a lot of the online stuff that's been available for a while. But let's talk a little bit about the origins of the Institute. What inspired the creation of the Institute?
We have been running Train the Trainer programs for 6-7 years now. So those programs became more and more popular. But, the first year that I did it, I think I offered 2 of them. By the next year, when I announced the dates, the day of announcing the dates, both programs were full. So I changed it to 4. And the next year, on the day of announcing, all 4 programs were full. So I changed it to 8. And then all 8 programs were full. And so we realized that there was definitely a need for people to have, somebody who was going to walk them through dog training step by step and be able to give them the examples and, the business aspect of it and all of it. But on top of that, we were able to really refine that system after doing it for so many years, seeing how the students learn best, what they need more of, what they need less of, what dogs are appropriate for them to work at what levels, how to create the programs and the systems and everything that goes behind that. And by the time we got to launching it for more of a worldwide thing through the Method Canine Institute, by the time we got there, we had a large majority of the kinks worked out at that point. We had a really great system down. We had, Hope and I know our programs so well at this point that, I mean, we can teach a 40-hour week without ever looking at a note or ever, slipping up in anything. And it's just something that's just very second nature to us now, and dealing with people from all over the world. The last gal that came to us in one of the live programs we had was from Ireland, and just getting the opportunity to meet everybody in different ways at their learning level and bring them through it. We've really refined the process very well. So once we got to the actually launching it worldwide, all it was at that point was making sure that the system that we created here transferred over to an online presence, that transferred over into, a sales presence, and really gave the students everything that they needed, whether they were right in front of us or they were online.
That's fascinating, because another thing that we had spoken about last time, and Julius, when we had talked about this, I believe. Stephanie, you're a big reader. You're a big fan of reading. And McKenna is too, and I bring that up because what we had discussed was how different mediums sometimes land differently. Like the book wasn't as good of a movie as it was a book type thing.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the biggest challenges of turning an online curriculum into that other medium of being, or excuse me, an in-person curriculum into being online.
Well, what's interesting is that we didn't really change anything. So the level 2 and level 3 certifications, which are dealing with predominantly behavioral work, fear, anxiety, reactivity, aggression, resource guarding, and such, those still have the same in-person component that people were coming to for Train the Trainer, that same 40-hour, week with us. But now we have this massive catalog, this library for them to look back on that we spend 6 years filming. On top of that, they get live monthly coaching where they can meet with other trainers, they can meet with us, we can discuss various problems that they might be experiencing, and that coaching extends while they're working on their certification and after their certification. So the only program that's a little bit new is the level 1 certification, which is available completely online, and it's dealing with more basic obedience on and off leash, the fundamentals of markers, a lot of that type of stuff. Business, public speaking, CPR, first aid, a lot of those things have gone into that, and that one's available completely online. So to us, that's the program that's new for us generally. But the other two, we've been doing a very long time, and what we really wanted to have was a master list of videos that would accompany that. Like, for instance, the level 2 has 280 videos available to the students, going through a wide variety of behaviors and case studies of us working with certain behaviors. And we wanted to make sure that if we were going to offer a certification, that they had every support possible to make sure that they were successful.
And the level 1 certification is really geared towards somebody that is never been in the business, or they've been in the business but really looking to improve the way that they're handling their clients. And it is definitely set up to help someone quite literally just walk into the business and say, okay, this is how I'm going to set up my company. This is the way that I need to set it up. This is why I need to be properly insured. This is how I'm going to market to my clients. This is how I'm going to, grow my business from the ground up organically, instead of having to dump a tremendous amount of money into advertising. All of that information is included in there. But one thing I definitely want to point out is, even though that program is strictly online, the standard in which we've set since day one, since the beginning of Method Canine, is to make sure that the standard that we're setting for the dogs coming through the programs is exceptionally high. The standard for the owners is considerably higher, in order to make sure that that translated over to the new, to students that wanted to bear, our stamp of approval or a Method Canine certification. When they're done with their programming, they still have to submit video content showing that they're able to do what they've learned. So it's not just a matter of, I'm going to take an online test and I can burn through this in the course of a couple of weeks, and now I've got my certification. We want to make sure that anybody that is bearing our mark is really exceptional. And so the content that's provided to them, is all go at your own pace, but it is really geared towards, once they get to the point where they're able to do what we believe they should be able to do in that program, submit video content that actually gets reviewed by Stephanie and Hope to make sure, okay, they are able to do sit down, come heel, place, and all the other elements that are required in order to gain that certification. On top of it, when we recertify people at the end of each year, we're actually going through and looking at their business model, looking at what they're doing, making sure that they're, not mistreating the dogs, not mistreating their clients, that they're actually getting, quality reviews, and they're not like, you go into somebody's business and they've got 30 or 40 reviews saying that they've, my dog was worse off. We want to be able to coach them. What's actually the issue? Where is this breakdown? Because sometimes it's just a matter of, people not really understanding, as you pointed out, how to properly communicate what they're wanting to get across to the owners. A lot of times there's this expectation where the dog is going to get trained and the owner doesn't have to do anything. So making sure that level 1 program is set up in such a way where the student really understands you need to be able to not just master the dog's skill set and make sure the dog's able to be trained and be well off, but you have to be able to communicate in an effective, palatable way with the owners to make sure that they understand that the dog is being set up for success, but this is your role and responsibility moving forward. I think that's something that we had heard from the students over and over and over again. I do the business coaching portion of it when it comes into like how we're actually vetting our clients and working with the contracts and everything. And the consistent question I get over and over and over again is, how do I convey this information to the client in a way that's going to be successful? So all of that's encompassed in the level 1 programming. And we're definitely excited about it. Already have a lot of good reviews on it. So
there's still business components that extend into the other ones. There's still public speaking. So the public speaking gets harder and harder with each level that you go up. Another thing that we dive very deeply in, and it's a part of the program that I really enjoy, but it's a personal development. So we dive very deeply into that. And, understanding our cracks and flaws as human beings, and not necessarily dog trainers, because we focus a lot on that. And that's what a lot of the program is. But there's many times where we can't grasp certain methods or, certain ways of doing things or certain skills because of cracks or flaws that we have in our own makeup. And then there's certain clients that we can't get along with. There's certain dogs that we don't click with. There's certain things that we struggle to talk about, and we need to understand what those cracks are. We need to fill them the best that we can through personal development. So we spend a lot of time going through that with the students as well, because just like with the dogs, everything has to be holistic in order for us to be successful.
I think the transparency on the learning side as well, or teaching side, ever since we started doing this, we've always been really transparent about what we're doing, what we found was successful, what we found wasn't, and not just saying, oh, look at this amazing thing that we've built and there's never been a problem, but really going down to the nitty gritty. And even when we first started the rollout, when she first started training dogs for money, so professionally on that side of it, versus when it wasn't, our entire life changed. We go through all of that because if you're going to be in this business, especially a lot of times people want to have the setup we have where they're dealing with a spouse in business, they're dealing with, a partner. We wanted to make sure all of that was fleshed out so that if people had questions or concerns, which really came up a lot, like, I want to be able to be in this business with my spouse, with this partner. How do we set that up? All of those elements are gone over in the level 1 programming, again, just to make sure that it's really complete.
That's awesome, actually, because my mentor had a kind of a similar dynamic as the two of you, right? Like, like alpha female, alpha male, you guys are working together for a mission, right? And I really love that. And it's so funny because my young childhood as a dog trainer growing up, I was like, one day I want one like that. So same thing. Same thing. That's so funny. That's awesome. What do you guys, just completely off subject what we're talking about, but like, is it possible that spouses can't work together?
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, totally. What makes it?
I think that's where that personal development really comes in. I think anybody should be able to work together, but if you've got cracks that are making communication impossible and you're unwilling to fill those cracks, it won't matter what you do externally. It won't matter what programs you have, what employees you have. There's just always going to be a crack that's in the way. And I think that's something that we've had to focus quite a bit on in the last 8 years is refining our communication, refining our roles and responsibilities, and trying not to step on each other's toes too much.
There's 2 magic words that fix everything, and it's yes, dear. That's right. But seriously though, actually I go over that, in the business coaching portion that I do in level 1 is not a required element for getting certification. Not everybody needs that, so we didn't make that a prerequisite. However, I go into that in great detail because there has to be a head and there has to be a tail. There has to be somebody that has the final word. And in our business arrangement, that's going to be Stephanie. So even though like technically we're 50-50 owners in the business, and this is a big deal that we've got going on, which we're very thankful for and blessed to have. At the end of the day, without her, this business doesn't exist. So understanding that and really setting up roles and responsibilities, and that's something that I harp on quite a bit in level 1. If you're going to be in business with somebody, you have to know where those roles and responsibilities are. And once you're given those. She and I, Steph and I had this conversation years ago where in the beginning she handled everything and then it became out of balance. She had so many clients that the back end of the business started to fail because she couldn't get to all of the emails, couldn't get to the, client contacts. And when we were dealing with a lot of piecemeal or day-to-day training where you have to take that, you have to take a hold of that client contact when they're ready or they're going to find somebody else. When she called me in, there was a point in time where, and I say this with great love and respect, but where she was micromanaging what I was doing because she wanted it done her way. So once we got through that educational portion or that training portion where I was like, how exactly do you want me to present this to the clients? I had to learn the business. I didn't know. I tell people all the time when I'm selling that I'm not a dog trainer and I keep, not necessarily away. I mean, I understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. I understand all of that, but I am not one of the trainers. I handle the backside of the business and that's always very, very clear. But the reason that's so important is that is what I need to handle. I need to be an expert in that portion of it. And we had that conversation one time where it was like, if this is the job that I'm going to be doing in our company, you've got to let me do it. You've got to empower me to do it. And on the opposite side, there's times, because I'm a safety freak, where I come in and I'm like, I don't know about that. But there's definitely, things where I'm like, you should, what about doing it this way? And then she'll go through, 1 or 2 dozen reasons why my idea is not working. And I have to be comfortable with that and say she's the expert in handling the dog and what she's doing is right. And there's been times where we've had scenarios where the dog has been really, I hate saying it this way, but really far gone, really aggressive. And I'm sitting there in my mind thinking, oh my goodness, like this is, when we had a 212-pound Mastiff come through that was human aggressive, she's a $125. It was a bit difficult for me not to just want to be there and want to kind of dive in. But really understanding, again, our rules and responsibilities of where things need to be led. I had to trust that she's going to be the expert. She's going to be able to handle it. And it's always worked out great. On the opposite side, sometimes the client interactions, if we've had clients that were a little more difficult, which we've had, people that have come through that have done the entire program, but for whatever reason weren't doing, quite frankly, what they needed to do. They weren't holding up their end of it. After 1 or 2 dozen phone calls with those people, I have to step in and say, look, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. And Stephanie has to allow me to be able to handle that. So we go over that in great detail because it is such a huge element to success. And I am very thankful that we've gotten to the point now and for many years now where we understand what each other is doing, why we're doing it, and we're comfortable in letting each other make those decisions. We still have that great communication where it's like, hey, just to let you know, this is what's going on. This is why it's going on. And we still do soundboard off of one another. I mean, nightly. That should never go away. But yeah, I mean, your question is very valid. And I think for a lot of people, they're looking for that kind of,
Yeah, well, I've heard advice in the past from different, business, people, where they talk about, you kind of need different roles in a business. Some say it's 2, some say it's 3. But I think the triad was like, you need like the artist, you need the manager, and then you need like the entrepreneur, the manager, and then like the demander, like the person inside, right? Like, what would you guys say is the dynamic that you see as like, yeah, across different businesses, I see that there's these 2 or 3 archetypes that we kind of need for a large scaled successful business.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just from my personal point of view, and professional point of view, Stephanie is definitely the head and the one driving what needs to be done. Our business, we've gone through ebbs and flows with the number of employees that we've had. We've had a lot, we've had a little, and the group that we have right now, everybody is focused for the same goal, and it's fantastic. So we wouldn't upset what we've got going on now for anything, regardless of how great a trainer might be or any of those. I mean, we are getting to the point where we're going to have to grow again. We're going to be hiring some other people, but we, going to be very selective about it. But all that aside, Stephanie's definitely the driving force. She's got a vision. This is what I want to do. And my responsibility is to learn what she wants to do and then help implement that. We have a phenomenal office manager named Carrie who is just, incredible. And she and I partner together. And then we've got an exceptional trainer, Hope, who Stephanie and Hope partnered together in order to get things done and make sure that we're all on the same page. But there's not a day that goes by now where we're not just, collaborating as a group on what needs to happen. Like for instance, with the school, we send out a toolbox to all of the trainers. And that's been a very interesting, learning curve for us because we've never really sent things out in great bulk. So, you get 100, 200, 300 packages now all of a sudden have to go out at once. that's something that's on Carrie and I, and we have to remove that responsibility off of Hope and Stephanie. So we definitely understand that there's some fluid roles as far as what needs to go on, but it's really Stephanie's the driving force, and then it's my responsibility along with Hope and Carrie.
It's really how we've explained it all along. I'm the training side and I'm the head of that. You're the business side and you're the head of that. My support system is Hope and your support system is Carrie. And that's really the four pillars that the business stands on, and it works phenomenally well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Like you need like even with me, like I'm training director, and then I have a training director assistant who helps me with all training, and then we have operations, and then kennel manager under operations.
Yeah.
So makes sense. That's awesome, guys. That's really cool. I enjoy, I enjoy the relationship dynamic, and because one day it's like, all right, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out.
The other thing too is, once we got to the point in the beginning, I remember the day when Stephanie first came running into the house, grabbing a piece of paper, scratching her name on it, and running out the door like a nut. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, I got to catch up with this lady. And our very first client, a lady walking a beagle named Knuckles, and she ran up and said, I can help you. And that's where it kind of all started, when we were like, okay, this can actually work. Now we're at right about 12,000 clients worldwide, and about 15 to 17% of that business is from outside the U.S. And so, you get to a point where now not all of those people are active at any given time. Some of them are older clients and whatnot, but, we are in the thousands on a regular basis where we're trying to communicate with people and get them where they need to be. And you can't do it alone. Finding quality people that are going to be, again, like-minded, and making sure that you're compensating them in a way which is very meaningful. There's a lot of pieces that go into, building what we've got. But again, on the transparency point, we've never had a question that anybody's ever asked us, especially the people in our programs, where we've been like, no, we're not willing to share that. We want people to be successful, and in this business, it can be very difficult. Especially, we find a lot of become dog trainers because they don't like dealing with people. So that's where they're like, Stephanie jokes around, you need to find a Julius. Not a lot of people say that. We're like, I need to find a Julius, and it's cute and it's fun to hear. But I definitely think that being in a position where we understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, is very, very helpful, because there's a lot of things, especially when it comes to, I've asked Stephanie over and over again, what exactly is going on with this dog? And I need that information to convey it over to the client. And then she'll give me the breakdown. And then I'll be like, no, I need you to dumb it down for me. Tell me like I'm a 5-year-old, and then I'll understand. And that's been just great. So the communication portion of it definitely has helped build us where we're at.
We're going a little off topic, but I want to stay here if you guys don't mind. I really want to know. So, as young entrepreneurs or people just jumping into the industry, people might look at a business like yours and be like, oh my gosh, I want that many followers. I want to have that type of website. I want to have those types of services. And people think, if they hire the right this and they do the right that, in 2 years, they're going to get it. You know what I mean? Like some unreasonable amount of time. If you were to break down like the phases of your journey, right, so that people could at least know they're on the right track, or where they are on a particular track to get to, if someone, was looking to be where you guys are, how would you describe that from like the beginning, this phase, and then this phase happened, and that phase?
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy is a good word. You have to tap into a work ethic that I think you've never tapped into before. For the first 3 years of our business, I worked
it was nuts.
12 to 14 hours a day with no days off.
Yeah, it was 7 days a week.
7 days, yeah, 7 days a week, no days off. That includes all holidays, birthdays, everything. So there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. You're sacrificing time with your family, you're sacrificing time by yourself, you're sacrificing, time with your own dogs. So to do it as quickly as we did, I think by the beginning of our 4th year, we had our facility. We were rolling 25 dogs in board and train. We had 6 5 or 6 trainers under our belt by year 4. That did not come without an extreme amount of work and sacrifice. And it's probably not the life for most people. If I had to do it again, I would have accepted the fact that we could just go slower and probably still make it there in due time. But I think one of our driving factors is the facility was really important to our family life. And Julius can probably expound on that. Having the dogs in our home, which is where we started, which is where a lot of dog trainers start, it's very, very taxing. And there's no separation between work life and home life.
Yeah. And we understood that and we had that conversation. So again, having that transparent conversation and making sure that you're at least in your mind doing the best to separate that business from personal, where we're like, okay, what is our goal and what are we doing to achieve that goal? And we had said, our number one goal is to get out of the house as soon as possible. And we didn't want to be in debt.
Yeah.
So everything that we have is debt free. I mean, we have managed debt and, you start learning about, having debt isn't necessarily a bad thing. And there's lots of tax advantages and stuff like that. But, making sure that we were in a position where we didn't owe anyone. We weren't taking out a tremendous amount of loans or anything. When we were buying our crates, we were buying our crates in such a way where they were paid off. We didn't okay, now we've got a business card. It wasn't something where, okay, now we've got an American Express with no limit on it. Let's go ahead and put $50,000, $100,000 worth of merchandise on it. We didn't want to do that. That was something that was important to me because, I remember having all sorts of growing up. I was young and dumb and I got my first credit card. Let me go put a bunch of rims on my credit card. I mean, just stupid things. As you get older and you start figuring out, the value of being able to have managed debt and things, that was all great. But we didn't want to get to the point where we were going to take on like $1 million loan and do all these crazy things. So we were very, very blessed in the way that we're money managing. And I have to give her complete credit for that because there were moments where I'm like, all right, I've owned businesses before where we got to this point, we need to purchase this because this is the bigger and better thing. And I really learned a lot of restraint through her because she was like, no, we don't need that. And this is why we don't need that. And I'm like, are you sure? I mean, we can go get that. And even when we were talking about like buying a van and buying different vehicles in order to do this, there was a crazy amount of restraint I had to learn. But looking back, it really worked out well. I mean, we have a 6,000 square foot facility now. We own the property. There's a lot of different things we're able to do here. The vehicles are all paid off. Everything is great. So putting yourself in a position to not have that be a stressor really in the long run helped us out incredibly. But the trade-off in the beginning was the crazy work, the endless,
In order to get to the point where we could move forward without debt, which was a big deal for us because we realized that this business was going to be our livelihood and our future and it needed to be done correctly. But you have to be willing to accept that once you start hiring employees and you work in your home, you lose any right to privacy. You lose all of that. That's gone. I mean, Hope would be in our kitchen at 6 a.m. making coffee. And I remember one time I was completely dead to the world. I was so sick. And Hope and Ava and Lauren are all in my bedroom sitting next to my bed. I've got a pot there just in case, I'm going to be sick or something like that. And they got their chairs and where they're like, okay, so we're thinking if we do this with this dog and we kind of move things this way that we could do this safely and do this safely. And I'm half alive talking to them. Yeah, that sounds really good. Oh, and working with dogs through the middle of the night, which was a regular occurrence for us. I mean, so there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. But I think if somebody wanted to reach our point that we're at now, you could definitely make it there going more slowly. We felt a huge strain on our family life, living like that day to day. And so we were in a bit of a rush to get a normal family life back. So we're pushing pretty hard. Didn't bother you. You could do the same thing in, over several years.
And to give you just a little more background on why we had that feeling. So I was in the same business and not to deep dive on this, but I was in the same business for 14 years and that business closed, not through my choice, but, just a series of events forced the closure of that business. And quite literally, we lost at that point everything. So things I had worked for, things that were, promised to me, it was gone. And there was a time where we had, and this isn't an exaggeration, less than $1 in the bank, and I didn't know what we were going to do. I wound up getting 2 jobs, and I was working the first job was from 8:30 to 3:30. I would come home, and the next job was from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. So 11 at night, 7 in the morning, I'd come home, change clothes, and then go to my next job, 8:30 to 3:30, come home and crash. And that was not a good recipe, but it was what was necessary. We just had our daughter. The other business closed 10 days before our daughter was born. Then I finally got one job that paid, and it was in insurance. And I'll be straight with you, I hated it. I hated it. I dreaded going, but I did what I needed to do in order to make sure that we were being taken care of and that Stephanie was able to be home. We didn't want somebody else raising our daughter. So there was a lot of key things that drove us. And finally to the point where, once our daughter Leia was old enough where it wasn't a big burden for, our mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, to help watch her. And our in-laws were just amazing. Stephanie's like, I'm going to start, training dogs, and we're going to just do this, and I can work around your schedule. And, we started doing that. And then the day finally came when we realized in 6 months, maybe even less than that she had made more, almost double what I had made in a year. And she said, I really think I need you to come help me. And I was like, still kind of like, no, it's still new. Let's wait. And then by the 8th or 9th month of that year, it just became really transparent. She's like, no, I need to hire somebody, and I want it to be you, and it was a trust, and let's get the business going. And then we kind of just put all of our eggs in one basket, and very, very blessed. We have absolutely the good Lord to thank for everything that we have, because, we would just simply wouldn't have it without the grace of God, quite frankly.
Amen.
We're very, very thankful. Yeah.
That's great. That's amazing. I mean, it's such a beautiful story. Like, how many people know this story? Like, this is great.
I'm super I love to talk.
Our students know it. Yeah, no, our students know it. We laugh, we cry with them. It's definitely a big deal here. It's a situation, especially at least the in-person part, where they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave us. They don't want to leave the building. They don't want to leave each other. And we'll look on the security cameras, hours after we've closed, hours after the program has ended, and they're all still in the parking lot. They don't want to drive away. It's a special feeling.
And we don't want to ever come off like, I don't know. I want to make sure that we're always very real with people. You start telling people, remember, I remember as a child being poor. I remember eating a stuffing sandwich. I mean, I'm a big guy now, and I like to eat, but there's a reason for that. I mean, you don't have food to eat. You don't have certain things. There's a lot of crazy stuff that we all go through in life. And the moment that you find great success, if you're not remaining grounded in it, where you can just have, real conversations with people and say, I understand what it is. Like, I need to do this for my business. We need to sacrifice this in order to make this goal happen, so that down the road we can have that, that financial benefit. I don't ever want to come off, and I know Stephanie doesn't either, where we're like unreal or unapproachable or anything like that. And I think the best way to be able to do that, I mean, Mariano and I have had many conversations about all sorts of things in life and relationships and just everything straight across the board. We want to be a friend to everybody. We want to love everybody, be able to care for everybody in a meaningful way. And the moment you start disconnecting the access people have to your heart, I think you lose so much. So we don't ever want to be that way.
People will feel it right away as soon as that door shuts. They're like, what happened?
That's right.
After you guys, so year 4 or 5, you guys started the facility, right? So you guys were having the facility, having your staff and board and trains. What was that next phase? Like, what was like, okay, we got this finally under control. What was that next jump?
It was the online stuff for sure. It freed me up to start creating our subscription page, creating a lot of our online courses, which really was part of the stepping stones to building this school. Is, we just have an insane amount of content at this point, and filming is just in our certification programs alone, there's 750 videos, 100 hours worth of footage in there. And that's not even including, all the stuff we've filmed for social media, the things we've filmed for YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So it really opened the door for the online portion of our, business concept to grow.
And on a personal note too, there is the physical side of having done this for as long as she's done it, where it's taken a physical toll on her. She's got torn muscles and ligaments and all sorts of things that she's, being cared for now. And a few years ago, we said we really need to alter the way that we're doing things in order to make sure that your health and well-being. Yeah, exactly. But another thing that I think was the next level was we had a serious conversation on how do we leverage our online presence to be able to maximize, those revenue streams, and allowing people to do Zoom sessions. We had some people that were from Romania recently that were doing Zoom sessions with us, showing us their dog, going through everything. And it's just been such an amazing adventure to go on with people where, once they see what you're doing and they have confidence in your ability to guide and coach them, that portion of it really became easy. And our online coaching is always full. I mean, there's never a time where we have, really availability. As soon as we open up slots for that, they get snatched up. And that was a nice area of growth for us. And it just made the next step into launching the school that much easier. Our initial offering for the school, we never expected it to do what it did. Probably, I would say, without exaggeration, 50 to 80 times what we thought it was going to do. Mind-blowingly. And we're very happy and very thankful about that. And just on a note, when these financial blessings started coming in and stuff like that, I was so proud and just so amazed that Stephanie had said to me, she said, I know that this money that's coming in it's not for us. It's for the people that are going to be coming into our lives. We preach a lot about relationship and about having that kind of, intimate relationship with our students, if they want that, to be able to be available, to be approachable. And, it's amazing to me how many times the conversations aren't even about dog training, but just about life. And I think that that's something that really, I don't say it in a prideful way, but kind of separates us as far as what we're offering out to people, because the individual success of every one of our students personally is something very, very important to us, because there's nothing greater than working for yourself. I mean, we have to be in the world, and whether we're in the world and not of it, we're here, right? So we have to be productive. We have to be able to provide to other people and make sure that whatever we're giving to them is done so in such a way where it really does multiply and bless them. It's something that's super important. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a couple days ago, we posted a post. We were asked on a podcast from the person we were interviewing, like, what inspires you guys? And we said the humanity of the dog trainers that we get to bond with and develop relationships with, right? I think we actually tagged you guys in that. And it's just so true. It's the people that we bond close with are the people we can have those, fuck dog training right now. Let's talk about life. Like, let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about growth. Let's talk about what you learned this month about yourself. Like, that human side is the part that, it strips you of ego, and just, we become people and we become a tribe. And I love that. That's my favorite part of this podcast. It's so cool.
I think that actually jumps off onto why we started the school. So something that we noticed with the board and trains is that we were booking 25 board and trains, and we were booked a year and a half out, and people were still calling every single day asking for more and more and more. And then we'd get at least once a week the emergency phone call. My dog just did this. We desperately need help. We're willing to do anything. We'll pay you double, whatever we can. And it's those phone calls that break your heart, because you're like, I can't right now. And, and there were so many calls coming through and so many people that we eventually had to, help in any way that we can. But eventually the services are so full, and the staff, you can't overwork your staff.
Or else the quality goes down.
Yeah. So we were like, the only way to help these people, because empathy is just so strong. The only way to help these people is to train more people to do what we do, and say, these people can help you. They know exactly what we're doing. They can get you in. They can help you. They're actually closer to you. That was a driving force too, is knowing that those phone calls are devastating, and we don't ever want to have to turn anybody away again. And that now we have 4 level 3 certified trainers, which are the trainers that we trust enough to send out referrals to. And I would say in the last month or two, we've sent out probably 7 or 8 of those emergency calls to those trainers. And those trainers are actually closer to them, which is great, and created, relationships with those clients, relationships with them, and things like that. And so we don't have to feel that heartbreak the way that we did before. We're able to know that they're okay. And then we can our students always have access to us for coaching and things like that. So we can know exactly how that client's doing with them, how the student is doing with them. And it's just coming around full circle very nicely.
That's beautiful. I love it.
I love it. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we'll talk a bit more about the Institute. Thank you guys so much.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to Dog Trainers Podcast. You know what's a great way to support this podcast? By becoming a sponsor today. With sponsoring the podcast, you'll be helping us make this show the best it can be, and so much more. From hosting more local events, traveling throughout the country, and connecting with trainers from around the world. Ultimately getting you, the listener, more of the content that you love. For more information, please contact us at dogtrainerspodcast@gmail.com, or visit our Instagram page at dogtrainerspodcast. Thank you guys, and now back to the show.
All right, guys, welcome back, and thank you again so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. This is our interview with Stephanie and Julius of Method Canine. And just before the break, we were talking about what the history of Method was and the development of that, but essentially how that culminates into where we are now. You guys, just before the break, were talking about starting your curriculum for online stuff and Train the Trainer and all the videos that you've recorded over a period of years. So before we go any further, we've discussed a little bit of level 1 and what that entails. And we talked very briefly level 3 and what that entails, but just lay out the levels for me real quick. How do you delineate those?
Yeah, so the level 1 is it's on and off leash obedience. It's understanding how dogs learn, understanding dog training theory, understanding the origins of the dog. It is problem solving for more simple behaviors. Jumping, barking, digging, nipping, chewing, humping, counter surfing, all those kinds of things, which is really, when you get into the dog industry, it's the vast majority of dogs. Truthfully, it's the bread and butter. When you get down to things, level 1, of course, goes over a great deal in business, public speaking, CPR, first aid, all of that. Level 2 is where we start really deep diving into more behavioral stuff. So level 2 is going to deal very heavily with fear, anxiety, and reactivity. The techniques going behind that, understanding physiology, understanding psychology of the dog, and how we shift some of our training theory when we get into that, because it is great to understand, operant conditioning, classical conditioning, all those things. They are super beneficial, but the theory shifts just a little bit when we start working deeper into behavioral work. And the level 2 comes with its own video library, comes with the monthly coaching, and it comes with a 5-day in-person component where you're going to come here and you're going to work dogs, and we're going to work on your body language. We're going to work on your timing, your technique. We're going to work on your ability to read dogs. And we do that in a large group so that we can see a wide variety of dogs with different temperaments, with different issues, different owners with different temperaments, different issues, trainers with strengths and weaknesses. And we really learn from each other during those 5 days. After that, they have to do, of course, all the written testing. They have to submit all of the video submissions and things like that. And then they get access to the monthly coaching, where if they need 6 months to practice and they need to keep coming back for more coaching, more guidance and things like that, they can for as long as they need prior to submitting their videos at the end. And then the level 3 is very heavily diving into aggression. So resource guarding, barrier aggression, human aggression, dog on animal aggression, things like that. And it's kind of going into each one of those categories. And again, theory shifts a little bit there, understanding physiology shifts a little bit there, and really giving the students the understanding of the why behind everything that it is that they're doing, understanding how to read dogs. There's a lot of case studies in there, different dogs presenting in different ways, different root causes, things like that. And then that also comes with a 5-day in-person component and has its own video library, own monthly coaching. They have to do the written testing, physical testing, all of that.
And the in-person components were necessary because, again, we want to maintain the highest standard. And the moment you go away from requiring somebody to show you that they're able to do what you're certifying them to do, removes that standard. We did our homework. We looked at, tons of different courses that are available, ones that were inexpensive, ones that were more expensive. And really that in-person component is just so valuable. I mean, you can't overspeak how important it is, because once we put our stamp of approval and we're able to say this person knows what, they need to know in order to meet, that specific level. And once they actually get there, we will have, I should say, database. We have it now, but not to get into the whole scenario. We had a company build us a new website, and unfortunately they failed miserably to complete everything that they needed to complete. I'm a little bitter about it, but trying to get, $50,000 later, you still don't have a website. It's a little irritating. But anyway, setting that aside, there'll be a database where people can go in and actually search for, I'm in, the state of Wyoming, and I want to know, is there a Method Canine trader in my area? And they'll be able to find them and see what level certification they are, whether or not they're in good standing. And good standing, quite frankly, is just that yearly checkup to see, are you doing what you're doing? And not to be vulgar about it, but are you beating the crap out of dogs? Are you actually training them? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Or is there some kind of an issue? Because we don't want to partner with anybody that's going to ever mistreat the animals. Say again?
Or the client.
Or their clients. We want to make sure. And if there's some perception out there that's negative, then that's a coaching opportunity. We want to be able to offer that to our clients. Because we've had students before that have come in that just like, I don't understand, I can train the dogs, but the client area is really difficult for me. I don't tend to get along with the clients and I'm struggling as a result. We don't want that to happen. So, all of that coaching has to be available to the students on a regular basis just to make sure that they have every opportunity to be successful.
One thing that, as you guys were talking, that makes this program feel unique and dog training programs is I want to learn more about how one thing unlocks the next thing. I also heard about this when you were doing some of those lives, Stephanie, that, level 2 access isn't even available until you've completed level 1. First of all, how did you guys come up with that idea? And then just logistically, how does that work within the website?
Well, as far as how it works with the training, we start really deep diving into physiology, in level 2, understanding the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, how to shut them off, how to turn them on. If you can't master simple things like timing, your markers and things like that, you don't have a shot at going to that next level. So there's no point. Honestly, I don't mind if they see those videos or anything like that, but you can't do any of the testing. You can't actually necessarily be part of that program yet. You obviously couldn't graduate from it unless you completed level 1. And I find that a lot of trainers who come in that say, I don't really care about that earlier stuff. I want to work with aggression. I'm not successful with aggression. Part of the reason you're not successful with aggression is because you're not taking the time to master those fundamentals. And I get lots of students who come in and say, I already know timing and I know markers and things like that. And I say, your timing is actually pretty good. Your body language is horrendous. It's confusing the dog and it's actually throwing your timing off, and stuff like that. And so if they can't master that, all you're doing is putting additional layers of a house on top of a cracked foundation. And you're wondering why it continues to crumble the moment you get a true reactivity case, not the easy one where you give a reward or correction here or there and then they're better and you do a before and after video on Instagram and it looks great. The true reactivity cases that have deep stuff going on and you feel like a failure at the end of the day, part of it is because we're not taking enough time to master that. So we do make people do the levels in order. The concepts build on one another. You're not going to master, the stuff that we present in later programs if you can't even master what's presented in level 1.
Which makes total sense. And part of the genius there that I look at from the perspective of what our listeners and just newer dog trainers really struggle with is coming up with a curriculum from A to Z. I mean, it's amazing how many dog trainers that Brent and I have met with the Art of Teaching seminar, Dog Trainers podcast, and all that stuff that don't even necessarily have so much as a structure for how they're going to run a 6-week group class for puppies. And yet you guys have built a whole train the trainer program from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. I guess what I'm asking here is, what were the major ins and outs, or what were the major pieces of just skill or experience that you've had to lean on in order to create one contiguous program that makes sense in order?
And I think this is more my forte here, but I set up systems because that's how I learn. I learn through systems. I can adapt to the gray in between, but it's nice to have black and white steps that you kind of guide where you're supposed to be going. And I remember when we first hired an employee, I had my systems in my head. Like I knew where I was at. But when we first hired an employee, I remember just like so anxious about keeping this employee safe because we don't work with easy dogs, right? I have a puppy this board and train round. This is the first puppy I've had in like 4 years. And, I have not had anything other than behavioral dogs, most of which have between 3 and 30 bites on their record. You know what I mean? So I don't get those. And so to have an employee come in and knowing that they need to be taught step by step by step. And after that, when you've learned the rules, you can bend them, but they really need a clear linear step by step process. And so when we first hired an employee, I said, I'm going to set this all out. And then when you hire another employee who learns in a different way, you're like, oh my gosh, our step-by-step process has to be even more in depth. And then you get another employee who's younger or older, or maybe they have a somewhat of a physical disability that you're dealing with. You're like, okay, now our step-by-step is even more detailed. So that's kind of the start of the process of being very in-depth and then transferring that over to the students and then meeting at this point hundreds and hundreds of students from all over the world who speak different languages, who have different training styles and techniques and methodologies in their heads, and finding a way to create a bullet point system that works for all of them. And and then showing them how to bend those rules and kind of adapt to whatever it is that they've needed. And it's been a process, but I think it would definitely have started with the employees to make sure that everything was as clear as possible, because the last thing I want is one, employees getting hurt, which thank God we have very little of, but two, I don't want them being scared. I don't want them being confused, because confusion eventually leads to failure. Failure makes you want to quit, and we don't want that for our employees and things like that. So I think that's where it started, and I'm a super type A type of person to begin with, so it's going to be very methodical. It's going to be very linear, and stuff like that. And I would just say over time, it's grown to be just a very big representation of something that we started long ago. And we've had the opportunity and made plenty of mistakes along the way to know what works, what doesn't work, what order everything needs to be in, how things need to be presented in order for people to be successful. And we're at the point now that for the most part, we can identify anybody's particular learning style. We can identify anybody's particular, handicaps that they might be dealing with. And we have been doing this so long as far as the teaching component goes that we can often adapt a lot of what we've created to meet just about anybody's needs.
I think another valuable point that needs to be brought up is our methodology when we're, hence the name Method Canine. I think it's a little different, or maybe it's significantly different, or at least this is what we're getting with our client feedback. We're not just training people to manage what we've done, but we're training them to continue it. So you can't just be in a position to just manage. They have to be able to duplicate what's happening. So when a client comes through, she's actually
specifically
training them.
A client that's training their dog with us, not necessarily a student.
Right. But I'm saying as far as like what we added to, understanding how people needed to be educated, she's actually training the owner to work with their dog, to train with their dog. Now it's specific to that individual case, but every one of these owners is different and every one of the dogs is different. So when you multiply that over, thousands of dogs over the vast, majority of the time that she's been working with them, it really opened up our eyes to, people needing, like, this person learns in this way, this person learns in this way. And what might be really evident to one client isn't evident to the next. And so all of that has been implemented into the training program and our approach with how to educate. She's phenomenal with analogies, and a lot of people I learned very well from, that way. And you'll find quite a bit of that peppered throughout the entire program.
I like it. I guess with all this being said, how do you guys manage to balance the theoretical, the intellectual, the tests online, all that good stuff with the hands-on application with dogs? I know that there's a big hands-on application, and there always has been with your Train the Trainer programs. How did you guys find that blend, that balance?
Well, the hands-on component is really going to cover just about everything that you need. The video component is going to mirror that. In case you're like, I don't exactly remember everything or every single step to everything, you can study through all of those videos. And the way that we have testing set up for level 2 and level 3, it's actually kind of fun. But the testing is all problem solving. So it's not going to be, hey, let's look back and find what we find. It's going to be all problem solving. And I'm actually introducing this to the in-person portion, and I'm so looking forward to it. But I'm going to make them do small group problem solving as well. I'm going to give them a specific client and a specific dog. They're going to have a whiteboard, and I'm going to say, I want you to come up with a training plan for this specific dog and this specific client. This is what you know from their initial evaluation, or this is what you know from your very first session. I'm going to let them work on it for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to say, and on session 2, we find out this. And on session 3, we find out this. And how does your training system have to adapt? Because that's really all it is. Dog training is like 99% problem solving, because you can know everything under the sun, and a dog throws something at you, and then you're stumped, right? Because you can't problem solve, you can't adapt, you can't change what it is that you've learned. So the levels 2 and 3 are going to do that, but it all mirrors the same content that they're learning in person, that they're seeing in videos, that they're problem solving with. It's all going to kind of come full circle about the same topics.
The original plan too for level 1 was to have people come to us. But as we kind of worked on it, this was over the last 2.5, 3 years that we've been putting this together. The reality is that not everybody can come to us. And sometimes that, somebody wanting to just get into the business, they're paying the fee, they're entering into the program. I'm going to start this out. They don't want to invest a great deal of financial resources in making that trip out here. And because we launched this on a worldwide basis, and we've got a lot of people that are coming from Canada, of course, that's probably our number one, but from these other countries, all throughout Europe and and whatnot. Australia, we have just a phenomenal, I always say it, but I'm blown away at how many people in Australia follow us and work with us, and how many clients have actually flown out to have us train their dogs. But when we pulled that component out, it really opened the door for anybody anywhere that wants to learn the system, and just being able to upload the video content, again, to still maintain that standard, because we have to be able to see that you're able to execute. Because if you're not, then it's just a matter of coaching you further and putting you in that position to be able to understand what you need to do in order to succeed. But that was a huge part of it, just making sure that it was available.
And I do have to say, as a young trainer, I would have given my left arm for that level 1 program to have been available at that point in time, to have so much concise information in one spot. I did various schoolings back in the day, and I can tell you that it's not really until I got out into the real world and I started working tons and tons of dogs that I really started adapting and learning. But if I had had something like that under my belt to start with, I think I would have adapted even faster. It's hard to find a one-stop shop like that level 1 program.
And we go into such detail about things like vetting your clients, like whether or not, when people come here, they ask me, and I say the very first thing you need to learn how to say is no, because not every client is going to be a good investment in educating people and understanding that it's not just somebody that you're receiving money to because you're providing a service, but you're actually investing into that person, and what kind of return are you going to get long term. If you're going to do a good job with somebody that's unwilling to do what little you're asking them to do, and you're just taking them on so you can make a dollar, that's understandable. And I'm sure we had plenty of clients in the beginning where that was part of the process. But at the end of the day, though, you want to have those clients that are going to be willing to do the work, that are going to be exceptional. And when people see their dog and they're like, wow, I want my dog to be, that way. For us, it's like the very first thing out of their mouth, Stephanie Vichinsky, Method Canine, trained my dog, best money I ever spent. But if they're unwilling to do that work, especially when you're dealing with dogs that we deal with, we don't want to have a scenario where you put all this time and energy and effort into working the dog. The owner doesn't, do what they're supposed to do. That dog then degrades, bites someone, and people say, oh, Method Canine, we didn't want that. So a lot of the training that we're going through in level 1 is gearing people to understand, this is how you're going to conduct yourself in business. This is what you need to look for. And that vetting process is so important, because if you don't want to work with dogs that have behavioral issues, that's great. Level 1 is perfect for you. Basic obedience, sit down, come heel place, and some of the softer touch things, but setting you up for success. And if you learn how to vet those clients in the beginning so that well, your dog is actually really aggressive, that's not something that's in a purview, then we send them off to somebody else or refer them out. So you're not, wasting that precious time doing like an assessment, in-person assessment, only to find out that this is kind of dog that you would never take. So dialing in every part of that learning process so that they understand this is the best way to maximize your time investment so that you're not losing money, basically. This is how you're to be successful, and all of those pieces along the way to ensure it. But yeah, the program that she's put together and how she's broken it down wasn't something where we, it came up with it over the course of a couple of weeks. Quite literally, it's been at least 2.5 to 3 years that she's been working on putting this entire program together and breaking it down and going from one level 1 to, well, maybe we should have a level 2 to no, actually, we need level 3. And even now we're looking at potentially having, in the next year, putting together like an invite program for level 4, the really extreme cases. That's further down the road, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But there's so much opportunity to train people. I mean, every dog that we have that's come in has just been, you think about, to make a point, you think about all these people that have come from so far away. The majority of our business does not come from the Northwest. It comes from the East Coast and the Southern states. So clearly there's a need that's not being met. And so the school was set up to actually meet that need. There's a lot of different reasons for it, but yeah, we're very excited about the future with all of this.
Well, that was one question. So how is this going to evolve over time? Like, basically, as you sum up level 1, something that stands out to me is something that, I don't know who said this, it was a while back, like season 2 or something, but just the ability to look around corners. That's what experience gains you. The ability to see the rake on the floor before you step on it. And Michael Ellis also said it beautifully in terms of like levels of awareness, if this makes sense. Like a newbie, like a client, you're working hands-on with an owner, working their own dog. They're so focused, like a new driver, on just making sure they're doing everything right, that it's taking all of their attention. Whereas a trainer has enough experience to work this dog and be mindful enough on top of that to communicate with the owner. And then you guys take that one step further with trainers, right? So that's kind of cool. And I guess my question to sum it up is, Stephanie's talked in the lives promoting this about the video library is going to continue to grow. I know you guys were talking about there's going to be, it's going to expand basically, more trainers helping out and all that good stuff. In what other ways are you guys planning to evolve this program over time?
Right now, that is just the main goal because this has been the vision for the last few years and we're getting it running. So my goal right now is with any new process and any new system that you're implementing is right now I'm looking for kinks and I want to make sure that all kinks are ironed in as smooth as they can be. And once I see that the machine is well oiled, no different than with our group classes when we started in our private sessions and our board and trains and our we do train the owner, we do train the trainer. Once we see that those systems are smooth and well oiled, that's when I'll start thinking about how we're going to gravitate. But right now, it's just going to be about offering the best possible product and making sure that this is exactly what we promised it to be. And so I'll start thinking about things later on in the future. But right now, the video libraries will continue to grow just to offer additional information to the students because I'm always going to be working with different dogs. And I'm sure you boys understand that every new dog in your program teaches you something different. Yeah. And so, any new thing that pops up where you feel like, we've had some cases where, we've got 15 different avenues of going down this and every single one of them slams shut. And you've got this little window that's up at the fire escape as you walk through this thing and you're like, I've never once thought about trying to wedge myself through that window, but today I am. And you're coming up with, avenue number 16, you know what I mean? And I want to make sure that I'm documenting those as much as possible for students so that they might not have to go through some of the things that I've gone through, because I've been through a lot with the dogs. I've been in scary situations. I've been in very difficult situations, very stressful situations, and anything that I can do to make their business run more smoothly or even just their education run more smoothly, I want to make sure that I do.
Now I have a big smile on my face because when we talk about the roles and responsibilities and how things are different, I am definitely geared towards how do we expand this and make this bigger. And so, what I envision is, again, kind of deferring to that, which is good judgment to make sure everything is ironed out and things are, completely squared away. I definitely see, more seminars. I see more online coaching, online seminars, individual coaching opportunities for people that want to go outside of what the school offers and say, look, I really have this scenario. I've got a new dog. This is what's going on. And being able to offer those out, as well. Those are, from the business side of it, those are different revenue streams. There are different opportunities. There's so much that's included in the school already, especially with the monthly coaching. But sometimes people want something more. They want additional tutoring, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I know that those opportunities certainly exist, and there's a call for it. So once we get to that point, probably in the next year or so, there'll be some additional offerings, that we'll put out. But yeah, I mean, the school has definitely grown so quickly. The next step in our process is going to be hiring some additional trainers to be able to review material and make sure that the quality of what we're offering, doesn't go down. It's just got to continuously go up.
Nice.
Cool. And speaking of additional tutoring, Stephanie was saying earlier, and I completely agree, everybody's got to find themselves a Julius. And I remember when we were laughing the first time we interviewed Stephanie, because that was before your interview, that we were talking about how unique it is to have somebody focus just on the business side of things. So talk to us a little bit about what your role, what classes do you teach, Julius, or, how does that work?
Sure. So on the level 1 certification, in fact, when you go in there, we moved the business section, which I was really, I'm kind of hard on myself when it comes to that. It was a struggle for me, just to make sure, like, I want it to be as good as it possibly can be. And when you're in a conversation with somebody, it's way easier for me to be able to pivot and make sure that their specific needs are being met. So I thrive in that type of environment. When I'm pre-recording something and going through and trying to say, okay, these are the bullet points I want to hit, it was a little bit more difficult. And then she actually said to me, she's like, well, just talk to them just like normal. I was ready for the suit and tie. I was ready for all these different things. And she's like, but that's not you. That's not what you'd be doing. She's like, you need to just have your hat and your headphones. And I was like, oh, that made so much more sense. But I walk through everything. So quite literally, I'm like, this is what I'm talking to you. This is the headset that I'm using. This is how I make phone calls. This is, all of the tools, the office things, because a lot of times people starting in the business, well, I need a leash. I need a collar. I need business cards. I always preach about not using business cards and why to use a club card. I know, Mariano, we talked about that. I go through all of that, every step. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what worked for us, and this is what didn't work for us. What worked for you might be different, and that's totally okay. But my responsibility in this is to be ultra transparent about why we've made these decisions and how we've made these decisions and what we found, was valuable. So I go over all of the tooling that I use day to day, from like our pinners, our check paper. And some people I was like, well, maybe this is overkill and people don't really want it. The compliments that we've gotten, and this isn't to be self-glorifying, but it was really great to hear the feedback from people that they're like, I needed this. Like, that's exactly what I was looking for. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about the filming portion of it, where I preach to people, buy yourself a body cam, record everything because you don't ever want a situation where somebody says, you didn't say it, you didn't show it, or this didn't happen. When you record everything, I mean, from the moment that the dog comes in, every conversation you have with the owner, obviously you're being transparent, making sure that, they've signed releases and stuff for it, but you're able to give that feedback to them. And when something exciting happens, some major breakthrough happens, you have that evidence to show, which is you're going to be able to show not just to the owner of that dog, but to anybody. This is the kind of dog that I had in my program while I was working. This is what I did. This is how I did it. And that speaks volumes to the client. So
particularly important when you're working off site. I would say a lot of our facilities, like our facility has cameras all over the place, but having the body cam adds an additional sound element to make sure all sound is captured correctly. But when you're off site, when you're taking dogs to various places and things like that, you can have cameras in your car and stuff like that. But when you're just working, I don't think a lot of dog trainers think about that while you're out on a field trip or you're doing a private session in a park or something like that, not really thinking of how important all of that video footage is.
Especially if you have a scenario where you're working a dog and then some other dog that's off leash or somebody else that has an untrained dog responds to the dog that you're working with, especially if the client isn't with you, to be able to show them evidence of this is what's going to happen in the real world. This is how I handled it. This is how you should handle it. And this is how successful, or more importantly, how unsuccessful your dog was. So you need to be hyper vigilant in this kind of circumstance. We've found over the years that the owners have absolutely adored that information, and it's been critical to our success. Now, as far as the rest of the things that I would go over, I think one of the biggest parts of it is how to vet the client. And I go through our entire, I actually pulled a live board and train, submission where the people went through and explained, what was going on. It clearly redacted all their personal information, but just walk through it brand new as if I had never seen it before. This is what's going on, and going through every element piece by piece. And a lot of what I do when I develop the client vetting protocol is I ask the same question a lot of different ways, and you'll find that people will give you different answers. So how many dogs are involved with your dogs? None. But you go down to the next one. Does your dog ever see any other dogs during the day? And they find out, well, yeah, my neighbor comes over all the time and there's 3 dogs and this is what they're doing. We need to have all of that information to be able to capture all that information. And I think my average phone call runs about an hour and a half if I'm doing a board and train phone call. I alone handle those phone calls. And the reason why that happens that way is to make sure that the information that's being provided to the client or potential client is uniform and complete. And so that phone call would probably take a lot more time if I didn't have all of these questions answered in advance. And a lot of students don't do that. A lot of people are like, I'll take a phone call. Here's my 15-minute phone call. And, I'll meet your dog. And in that 45-minute assessment that we found a lot of trainers were offering for free, they find out that the dog is way outside their learning curve. And they're well, now I've invested all this time. What do I do? We're able to take all of that time and do away with it and going through. So kind of put a finer point on it. When I go through the client, client form, so when I go through the form that they submit to us, the intake form, it probably takes me 3 or 4 minutes to go through the entire form looking for key elements. What kind of dog? What's the major issue? What kind of service they're looking for? And I'm able to immediately understand what we're going to do with that client and whether or not it's something I'm going to handle or something that Carrie is going to handle. Is it something that we would offer, a private session to, something that's going to be better for a class? Is it a board and train only dog? And then we have, signatures set up or canned information where it's like, your dog wouldn't be eligible for the program that you're looking for. It's a board and train scenario only, and this is why, and giving that information. And the reason that's so valuable is now the client knows where we stand. Either they want to have that conversation or they don't. If they don't, and I know for certain that it's not a dog that's going to be successful, Your dog's bitten 5 other dogs. Well, yeah, a class isn't going to be a good scenario for you. Your dog's bitten multiple people. Private sessions probably not going to be a good solution. Your dog is a board trained dog only. When the client gets that return email, and it's a very quick turnaround, now they have a decision to make. If they decide, no, that's not a service I'm interested in, I need to walk away. I'm not going to chase after them. It's not about us lowering our standards to make it's about saying, okay, if you're willing to have that conversation, maybe you do it, maybe you don't, but we need you to be willing. Because again, if you're not willing to do what little we need you to do in the front end, you're never going to do what she needs you to do in the back end, which means it's a bad investment on our part. Going through all of that in a deep dive way with the students puts them in a position to understand the value of it and then be additionally successful so they're not wasting all of that time. I think the biggest area that on the business coaching side over the years that we've dealt with is so much wasted time. And when you start, it's great, you charge $100 an hour, that's fantastic. But you spent a half an hour driving here, half an hour driving back, an hour on a free session. Well, now you're at $30 an hour or even less. And people are just like, wow, the bells start going off in their mind, realizing that they have all of this loss, walking them through the entire program from start to finish. And then I go through the sheet very quickly with them in the video. And then I actually go through it and break it down step by step. This is why you want this information. This is where you need this information. Like simple things like who owns the dog. We have a lot of people that get a hold of us where they have adopted the dog from a rescue, but the rescue still legally owns the dog, where it's like during a trial period, not just fostering, but we know rescues where it's like, we want to be able to approve what kind of training you're getting. So those things are really key, because if the dog comes for training and then the rescue is like, oh no, we don't want prong collars, we don't want e-collars, and that's not part of the contract, that's a problem. So we want to make sure all of those things are fleshed out in the front end so we're not dealing with issues, later on. So we go through all of that, how to accept payment, how to actually get to that point, how to price your services. A lot of trainers are charging too little. And I know that sounds horrible, but it's like when you actually calculate what you're doing and the service that you're providing to people, there's a huge difference between somebody coming to you and you going to them. Because now it's not the same amount of money. It winds up being, all of the investment, the time, the energy, the cost of gas, all of that you're giving. And if you're giving that away for free, that's great if that's what you want to do. But if it's not part of your financial plan, then you're going to be at a loss at the end of the year that you're not expecting. And we've had a lot of trainers come to us, I thought I made a lot of money, but I didn't. And I don't understand where the disconnect is. So all of that's included in that first portion of the training.
You were touching base on something that actually reminded me of an earlier point when we were talking about relationships, and like we got to understand the cracks that we have and the issues that we might bring to the table. One thing that I noticed, just working with trainers is, when you're talking about people who to value their time and set their rules and come with some type of status frame and like you're the professional, act like one, you're not their employee, kind of like things that people, there are cracks that people come with, people pleasiness and low confidence or imposter syndrome, or there are these things that that add to the difficulty for that. But if I had someone tell me to my face, like, this is logically why, this is logically why, this is logically why, this is logically why, this is how it causes you pain and discomfort, and this is how you actually aren't helping nobody by not handling these things, it can help give enough pressure to someone to be like, okay, I need to start working on this. I need to start changing. I need to start building that. And I remember even as a young trainer for myself, like if I didn't have a mentor or a group of trainers that were creating a culture around me to remind me every day, don't forget to do this, that don't talk like, change the words this way. Sometimes just like I needed to be trained. I needed to be trained to stop being a people pleaser. I needed to be trained to not do that, so it's really cool that someone can break down the whys of it all, because it can all easily be clouded by just this, like, I want people to like me. I don't want people to just be mad at me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Or I don't deserve this.
Yeah. Or I don't deserve this 100%. And I think that's so invaluable. Like, just to have a big brother to be like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, like it's so huge. And I find myself, I do that now with all my employees. And like, that's kind of my job, is to create this environment where, come on, you got it, buddy. Come on, you got it. Oh, good job. You did a good job. Like it's cool. It's really cool to hear you guys break down how detailed this side of the course is.
Yeah. We want people to feel empowered. And just like she said, we've had a lot of students over the years who were working for other places and they wanted to go out on their own. And I remember one in particular where I was blessed. She had reached out via email and said, look, she was a student of ours that came to one of our trainer programs, which was before called the Shadow Program. She's like, do you have a little bit of time to talk to me? And I gave her a call, and we were having this conversation about, she's like, I'm just not sure if I should go out on my own or not. And I remember, asking Stephanie in advance of calling her, because I remembered who she was, but I was like, is she a good trainer? Like what? And Steph was like, oh yeah, she's great. And once she pointed out the different things that were going on with her skill set and the things that she was trying to work on, part of it was that confidence. And so when she asked me about whether or not she should go out on her own, I said, I talked to Stephanie before I called you, and you were exceptional. You absolutely should go out on your own. And why wouldn't you? And, she's like, well, what about this? And this was part of the reason why I put all these pieces in the business portion of level 1, was these are real questions that I've been asked over the years by trainers, like, how do I do this specific part of it? And when I had walked her through the entire process, just like go and, become an LLC, and this is how you're going to file it, and walked her through all those pieces, it didn't seem so daunting to her. She did it. And like a year later, got a hold of us, and she's like, I've been working these dogs, and now I'm doing, dog training, and not just dog training, but I've got dog walkers, and, I've got all these deals worked out with these different apartment complexes. It was so awesome to hear that she'd found the success that she was looking for, not because we had done anything other than just kind of broken it down and made it a little bit more piecemeal and said, this isn't as big of a deal as you think it's going to be. And we definitely found a lot of people, needed that. So I actually go over, this is how you're going to build your brand. This is how you're going to do your marketing. This is how you're going to develop relationships in the computer, in your community. And I always tell people, don't forget the donuts. You need to bring the donuts. You have to, if you're going to that veterinarian's office, don't come empty-handed, because, and don't try to sell like the vet. You don't need to talk to the actual veterinarian. You need to sell the receptionist, because she's the one that's going to hand out your business card. And if I come in with 24 donuts at 10 o'clock in the, in the morning, I'm going to be remembered versus the person that just says, hey, I offer you nothing, and here's my business card, please give it out. And we've actually had local vets contact us, be like, yeah, we need some more donuts. Oh, I need business cards. So I know that it works. It's just good stuff, and it's not very expensive. I mean, you have to be able to develop those relationships. And again, we really do just hammer all of that home for people. And again, just answering those questions that we've had over the years that were important to the students that we've had.
I love that, man. So let's recap this here. We've got the Method Canine Institute has 3 levels. And if I heard correctly on the lives, there's kind of levels to the levels. Like there's the kind of complete version, and then there's the video only version. Do all 3 levels have video only versions?
They do have video only versions. Are not interested in certification, or they just want the information, they're welcome to purchase that. And with levels 2 and 3, those videos are meant to be in tandem with in person, but there's still a tremendous amount of information in there. But yes, they can do it that way. Or if we have lots and lots of people from other countries that are very interested, they don't know if they'll ever be able to travel to us. So they have the option to purchase the video onlys and upgrade to the certifications anytime that they want, and just pay the difference for that, which gives people, a little bit of breathing room when they're trying to figure out what it is that they want to do, because they don't know what the next year or 2 years looks like for them. They can, of course, purchase the level 1 and do that, fully online, but the levels 2 and level 3, a lot of people purchase the video only and will upgrade when they feel like they can, but at least they have the information. They can start learning and applying and doing that type of stuff prior to that. So we do offer that for people as well.
That's one of the things that I've liked about how you guys structure things since when did I go out there? Sometime last year? And last summer. And I remember that it was, you guys were already kind of thinking about and planning a lot of this stuff, but you were still very much doing like the train the trainer and a lot of the live seminar stuff. And I remember last time we talked about how this sounds so simple to people listening, but it's actually very important. When you were doing something as basic as how long should each of these programs be? 5-day, 10-day, 2-day? That was a really important piece to think out, because you're considering all these different things, people's finances and people's situations, and yet a certain level of quality control for what it is that you offer and your stamp of approval. And when you juggle 4 different balls in the air, it's really hard to not drop type thing, right? So it's cool to see how structured, how organized. And Brent shot me a text here saying, our good friend Tyler Muto, who, if you guys, I'm sure you know who Tyler is, but if you guys haven't had a relationship with Tyler, Stephanie, you said something earlier and last time that we had interviewed you that the day that you had to write your programs out for your newer trainers, that's when you really got organized and systemized with what goes where. And I understand. And you explained it beautifully about like, then you can kind of blur the gray, right? It's like Bob Ross painting. It's like, let me kind of blur the...
Yeah.
But the blue and the white and the this and that still needs to be there. And then we kind of find the blending therein because it's always different, right? So the reason I bring up Tyler is he said something very similar. He did those Learberg courses, and he told us, never have I gotten so methodical about my training until Learberg, kind of not made me, but made me draft out exactly what I'm going to talk about and what the shot's going to look like and what the purpose of the shot, and like a director in a movie, right? And there's a cool level of intentionality there. And I'm sure you guys cover all this in the program, but I think I petitioned each of you separately, and I'll do one more time. I'd be willing to pay for like a quick course on just where you can find further resource. Like, hey, if you were going to read about this, I would check out this book, or this person's interview with this guy. And if you wanted to learn, like you said, there's self-improvement, there's how to build curriculums. You had your degree in linguistics, right? And creative writing, if I remember correctly. What skills all that's given you? And if so, where can people collect some of those skills? Like just simple things like note-taking and speed reading and all these types of things that I'm sure you do that most people don't even think is a skill to kind of lean on to develop further skill. And Tyler seems to be a very similar kind of kindred spirit. We think that you guys would all hit it off really well. We should see if we can get you guys together for an episode or something.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
But sorry, so to recap, there's 3 levels. And there's a video version of each level, and then there's the certification version of each level. And if somebody were to buy the video version, they could later upgrade to the official certification version by paying the difference, which is nice, and it offers flexibility. And the difference there is, on top of the video, you gain access to the coaching and like the in-person testing and the certification itself and all that good stuff?
And the written testing as well, because that's not available on the video only.
Is the written testing done remotely?
Yeah, it's done right in the program. It's at the end of each chapter. The program runs it automatically.
I see. And then you and Hope review that stuff and pass or fail it, and then they kind of continue?
Yep.
I'm sure this is a real common question, but if somebody were to fail a test, I'm assuming they'd retake, or how does that?
They have the option to retake the written testing as many times as they want. They have 2 opportunities to submit the physical video testing. So they can submit their videos the first time through. We will critique, offer any changes that we'd like to see or any things that we think need improvement, and they can submit again. Any submissions after that is accompanied by a fee, but we do hope that all students can get it within the first 2 submissions.
Right, and I'm sure the fee is just to cover time and all that stuff.
It is,
to sit there and review it all.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Is there anything about the program other than the fact that you mentioned, and I just keep bringing it up because it's cool and it's useful, that it's going to
referred like 3 people to it.
Yeah. Well, my assistant,
amazing.
My facility manager, Emily, freaking loves you guys, and she wants to do it. Other than the fact that you're going to continue to add further content into it, is there anything else that we haven't mentioned about it that you guys would really like to mention?
We have payment plans available, which I know a lot of people ask about. So there's payment plans through third-party sites that are offered when you get to the checkout page. There's payment plans. If really necessary, you could contact us personally. If you didn't qualify for any of those payment plans through the third-party site, you can contact us. We might be able to work a payment plan out for you just through.
Yeah, we have like an in-house financing option that we've offered that's actually less expensive than what's offered online. But you have to go through the financing options that are available through our checkout system currently. That's the agreement we have with them. If for some reason that was to fail, we have backup plans, or if it's not available to you. So there was some people that were outside the country that just did not have access to those financing options, and they wanted to finance, and that's why we had to come up with some alternative plans. So if it's not available, you can have instant access to it. You do have to contact us directly. We don't have that something that's set up for the general public because of our contracting for the payment structures that are currently in place. Everything is really affordable. We haven't had any complaints. We've had a lot of people take advantage of that, which has been fantastic. However, we did have a massive sale, a pre-sale that's ended. So the massive pre-sale was $17.95 for level 1 certification. Right now it's going to be on regular pricing, which is $29.95. So that pre-sale was quite significant. We've decided that strictly for your podcast listeners, we are going to offer them $1,000 discount off of the
Wow.
$29.95
Whoa.
programming. So I'll make sure I get that all over to you so that's set up, and we'll get you an actual affiliate link and all that kind of good stuff that'll be set up for, that discounting. But anybody that winds up using that link will be able to get that specialized pricing just for your
amazing, man.
listeners.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's
Thank
incredible.
you so much. That's incredible.
Thank
Do
you.
you guys do you guys have like facility pricing? Like, let's say there's people who have like for example, I have 10 trainers, right? And if I wanted to have a course, obviously I want to pay you guys, but like, what do you guys have something like that?
So we didn't work anything out like that initially, but I've had so many people asking about it that's something that we're figuring out exactly how that's going to be.
We have worked out some things. So we have Nick White coming, and he's putting just vast amounts of his off-leash canine trainers through the programs. We've got private weeks blocked out for him and his trainers to come through. So we have worked that out for, some of the bigger companies and things like that. But yeah, we're open to discussing that with other people, especially if they have, staff that they're trying to get everybody through and things like that.
That's what we've had. I've had some people say, hey, look, I've got 2 trainers or something. I've got 10 trainers. I've got 20 trainers. I'm really blown away by that portion that's come through. I honestly hadn't really thought of that as being an option. I just assumed that some places would want to send maybe a couple of their trainers, but we're definitely open to that, and we're working through all that kind of stuff to make sure that it's fair and reasonable and cost effective for any company that wants to do something like that. So I don't have a specific answer for you yet, but that's definitely on my
but it's
my
definitely
table.
there's a demand, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a demand, and that's kind of, you guys are of service, right? So anytime you guys see a need or a service, you guys work really hard to fill that service and
Absolutely.
and fill that need, and that's the beautiful part. My last question for you guys before we wrap up: what is, like, if you were to whittle this down to the root, what's driving you guys?
I think we're both really, really dedicated to the community in just about every way. And I think that community started with just the people in our neighborhood running down the street after Knuckles, and then grew to, working with the shelters and rescues in our area, which grew to, working with people out of state and working with people out of country, and then working with trainers from all over the world, and truthfully working with our community in lots and lots of ways that aren't dog training. We have lots of things lined up where we're always trying to be of service, of value to the communities around us.
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that was the word love. The immediate thing that came after that was God. We love people. And regardless of how people believe or where they might be in that scenario, we love everyone equally. We want to make sure that people know that they're cared about, regardless of where their background is or how their life is or anything like that. We walk through everything that we're doing, and this isn't to be pious in any way, but everybody deserves to feel loved. And when people come to our programs, one of the things when I get to my portion, and I know that Stephanie's done this too, is we want people to understand that right now, the way that you are, when you were born, everything you ever needed to be, you were there. You're made perfect, right? So we want to love you. We want to be able to care about you in a way that's meaningful and support people in a way that is truly supportive, where it's not something where it's just like, oh yeah, we support our, I used to use this as an example when we had the movie theater, about supporting our troops, right? It's a sign. A lot of people get the banners, they put it up, we support our troops, but what are you actually doing? So when we had the movie theater, we had a program where once a month, anybody that was active duty, we would allow their entire family in for free. I mean, concessions, everything straight across the board, come in, because that's real support. That's support in what we consider to be a meaningful way. And it's not enough to love somebody in a way that makes sense to you, but to truly find out how they need to be loved. And I feel very blessed in the respect that when our students have come through, that's like the number one piece of feedback that we receive is, I felt cared about. I felt like I was important. I felt heard. I felt loved. And we're so thankful for that portion of it. For me, and I believe for you too, that's really the driving sense behind it. We're all in this world together. Nobody gets out alive. We have to be able to be something of more value than just like, well, I learned this. And for some people, that might be the way that it is. We've had lots of students where, it was just, what is the value add that you're going to provide to me? I've got this information. Have a nice day. And we don't hear from them again. That definitely happens. But I'd say on the whole, the vast majority of the people that have come through these programs still send us cards, still send us emails, excited about like, this is what happened. This is amazing. Look at this. And, even our clients, we have a board now, Carrie made, where she's like, we get all this information all the time, these cards and stuff like that. And this is my dog, and exciting. And, whether it's good information or bad information, we've had clients whose dogs have passed away that they've gotten a hold of us to just to let us know, or something, critical happened. That's not happening because they paid a fee to us. That's not happening because they bought that from us. They felt what we want to provide, because I don't want, and I know she doesn't want, anybody in this world to ever feel unloved, to ever feel alone. And so, everything that we're doing is really geared towards that. Forget about the dog training. Forget about, all of these things. It's great to be in business. It's great to have, a facility. It's great to have, money coming in. There's a lot of good that can be done for that. But that personal connection, being able to look at somebody and say, I care about you, and having that person know that they actually are cared about, that they are valuable, that they are loved, that they are important, nothing trumps that. Everything else is pales in comparison to that opportunity.
That was beautiful, man. Both of you. That was a great, amazing answer.
You guys sound so happy. I like it. You sound so clear. You sound so excited.
Yeah, and going back to that post we made, it's the humanity, right? This is the human side. I think great leaders bring people together. They create community. They don't divide people. They don't talk shit. Again, thank you guys for being kinfolk and being willing to do this podcast. Anything else you want to wrap up with, Mariano?
No, we love you guys. Thank you guys. In fact, I guess I actually did have one more question. So we were talking just now about, what, in different wording, but basically what function does this serve? What purpose does this serve? And a question that I'd like to ask, on behalf of myself and listeners, is how can we help you? Because you guys help everybody else so much. I like to hear that you're so at peace right now, but how are things going for you guys, or what can we do?
Donuts?
Yeah, donuts. Don't forget the donuts.
Pray.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
The only thing that we could ever ask of anyone, and this does come from, honestly, our I hate saying religious point, but our relationship with God, is that we would want everybody to be able to find the joy that we have in life. So if there was something that you wanted to do with us, honestly, we would just love to be able to take a moment to pray with you and hope for you and for all your listeners that they would receive the same blessings that we receive. So would that be all right?
I'm down.
Down.
Heavenly Father, we love you and we praise you. We thank you, God, for today and the blessings in our life, and just pray over anyone that's listening, God, not that we would be glorified, but that you would be glorified, that they would find the peace and the joy and the happiness in life that we found, but much, much, much more, that you would bless them abundantly, pressed down and pouring over, that if they needed anything, God, if they needed an opportunity to hear you or know you, that they could reach out to us, and that you would just encamp your angels about them and keep them free from sadness and sickness and anything that would be negative, Lord, but that they would just really experience all of the joy that we've had, all of the blessings we've had, the financial blessings that we've had, the peace that we've had, the love that we've found, that they would have this, that they would know this, and it would be incredibly abundant. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity to share our business, to share our faith. We love you. We praise you, God, in Jesus' precious name.
Amen.
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 That was beautiful, guys. That was beautiful. First prayer we've ever done on the podcast, but I love it.
That's good. Hopefully it's not the last. So, well, God bless you both. Thank you so much
too,
for this
guys.
time. It was really amazing, and we appreciate it so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much
to
for
all the
having us.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to have you back hopefully soon. Thank you again, all the listeners listening. My name is Brent LaBrada. That guy's Mariano Alvarez. And we want to thank Julius and Stephanie Vichinsky from Method Canine for joining us. We will see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.